generates winners and losers.
But if the government
And
did
not
not
of
do
the kind
that,
I like.
if the government did not do
Let
that, it
me
would collapse.
ask you, huh?
If the government did not do that,
Well, that's
the monetary system would collapse because the full faith and credit backing it up.
well, there will be bankruptcies, I agree. There will be a lot of winners and losers, shaking, of course, there will be. But if you, after that, start on a clean and correct way with a proper monetary system and stop the Greenspan put and the moral hazard implicit in all the regulations, there is a brighter future
I think that
ahead.
can happen, but I think they're just going to have a huge collapse before that.
Correct. Well,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. This could have been the huge collapse if they had let Citibank, Bank of America, and perhaps some others.
What they really did is they passed that leverage from private sector to
To
tax
the Fed.
and the Fed.
Correct.
That's what they did.
Correct. Yeah, I agree. But there is this thing that these decisions that generates winner and losers are decisions that generate a bad culture, a bad feeling, and people who normally would admire, or people who, let's say, in church would be exemplary, ended up being fools for being prudent, for saving, for doing things right. They are the fools. The people who acted imprudently, who were took excessive risks, leveraged themselves to the maximum, are now being bailed out. So the message is the opposite of what common sense, and somebody said that common sense is what economics is all about, and church tells you. So there is something.
So you're back to greed.
No, it's not greed in this case. It's the greed is an excess. I agree, but the problem here is that regulations and the institutional framework lead you to these behaviors that are wrong. But if you look at the success of the people who engage in those, you cannot blame them. They took, let's say, a loan, a mortgage for much more than they could pay, and then they were bailed out, so they ended up with a good house by a system which normally they would have never lent them because they didn't have the resources.
Also the greed by the banks who wanted to make money by lending money.
That's inherent. That's inherent in any economic activity. In this case, the shareholders of the bank want to make money.
It's inherent in human nature.
I know.
In human nature.
Yeah, I think the whole thing.
It's not the greed. It's the people who save that people from the consequences of the greed. Because if your greed leads you to a mistake, you should face it.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That you were saved from it.
But look at what happened with the regulators in Madoff. And in commenting a couple of days ago on Bloomberg, he said that the regulators said, oh, but it's only the competitors of Madoff who are bringing this thing to our attention. So we don't really believe that we should stop him because the competitors are saying he should be stopped. Isn't that idiotic?
I was just going to say I think part of the point is that the price signals are distorted. So if you had a rational market, the greed would be directed towards genuinely productive activities.
Correct.
Whereas with the false price signals, people are still, going after the profits. It's just that it's in a way that ends up being destructive.
Correct.
Because the prices were false.
Correct. That's. I mean, that has two aspects.
The problem with the whole
The one he mentions and the one that I said, which is once if your greed is directed to in normal conditions with the right prices, no artificial intervention by the Fed to lower the rate, that greed will lead to activities that are demanded by the consumers and therefore for the benefit not only of the greedy but the rest of us. If the rate is artificially lower, it will go to malinvestments, investments that have no future, and then not only that person will have made this malinvestment to our collective failure, but also will be saved by the authorities, which is basically saying Come on, do it again.
Well, it's like the lottery, isn't it? Too.
Huh?
The lottery.
Yeah.
Don't you think though that, I mean, you know, I think it's fairly straightforward. We are all controlled by the financial system, by the banking system. They have created this whole world of consumption. They created the American dream, where you have to keep on buying and consuming. And also to do that, you have to keep on borrowing.
I would say that that's
available. I mean, it's a whole cycle. Okay, you know what you did
I would say that's a view that is shared by many,
yeah.
but I don't think that you can say that that's one group of factors. That's much more complicated to be just the creation of a group of factors.
But listen,
it has to be much more wide.
The G7
a coalition should be much wider.
The G7 central bankers meet every 6